On trade and commerce. Commerce serves as a vital means for individuals and entire nations to acquire goods that are necessary but unavailable within their own borders. This trade is categorized into two types, domestic and international. Domestic trade occurs within the boundaries of a nation, involving transactions among its residents, while international trade encompasses exchanges with foreign nations. The significance of domestic trade cannot be overstated. It provides citizens with access to essential, useful, and enjoyable goods. It stimulates the circulation of money, promotes industriousness, invigorates labor, and supports a large workforce, thereby aiding in the growth of both population and national strength. Similarly, international trade holds immense value, offering two distinct advantages. It allows a nation to obtain goods that cannot be produced locally, either by nature or through human craftsmanship, and when managed effectively, it can enhance national wealth and prosperity. Historical examples, such as Carthage's wealth that challenged Rome's might, or the economic success of modern nations like England and the Netherlands, illustrate this point well. Carthage's riches enabled it to compete with Rome, while Holland's merchants have amassed great fortunes, even establishing control over regions in the East. England has also risen to significant power through commerce, shifting from reliance on military conquests to leveraging trade to influence Europe. Nations must prioritize domestic trade for several reasons. Firstly, it aligns with natural law, which dictates that humans should assist one another and contribute to each other's well-being. This obligation emerged after the establishment of private property, where individuals are encouraged to trade goods they do not need at a fair price. Secondly, the very foundation of society is built on the idea that individuals should be able to obtain what they need for their own fulfillment and happiness, making the promotion of domestic trade a collective responsibility. Lastly, a thriving domestic market benefits the nation as a whole, making it a civic duty for citizens to support and enhance this trade. In a similar vein, nations have a duty to foster international trade, ensuring their citizens can access what they require. Among modern states, England stands out for its commitment to this endeavor. The Parliament closely monitors trade, safeguarding merchants' navigation rights, and offering substantial incentives to boost exports of surplus goods. The benefits of such prudent policies are clearly evident. Now, let us explore the natural laws and rights governing commerce between nations. Humanity has a mutual obligation to assist each other, leading to the conclusion that, after the emergence of private property, individuals are duty-bound to sell goods they do not need at a fair price to those who do. This principle extends to nations, granting them the right to procure necessary items from others at equitable prices. However, the right to sell is not reciprocal. Individuals and nations cannot be compelled to sell goods to unwilling buyers. Hence, states possess the authority to restrict the entry of foreign goods without facing valid complaints from affected nations, as such restrictions are based on the sovereign right to protect national interests. If a nation prohibits imports without just cause, it may be seen as an act of hostility, but determining the legitimacy of such a prohibition can be complex. While nations have the right to buy what they need, this right is inherently imperfect, lacking the ability to enforce compliance. If a nation declines to sell goods at a fair price, the buyer may express discontent, but cannot resort to coercion without infringing on the seller's rights. This imperfect nature of the right to purchase mirrors the situation of a poor person requesting charity. While they may rightly complain if refused, they cannot forcibly take aid. In times of dire necessity, nations may act differently, but this will be addressed further in subsequent discussions. Since a nation cannot claim a natural right to sell its goods to others, and since commerce involves mutual buying and selling, the decision to engage in trade lies entirely with each nation's discretion. Should a nation allow trade, it can do so under terms it deems appropriate, as granting trade rights is within its jurisdiction. Men and sovereign states may enter into binding agreements regarding commerce, transforming a natural obligation into a contractual one. Such agreements establish the parameters of trade rights, though merely granting permission does not create an absolute entitlement to trade regardless of changing circumstances. A nation retains the authority to revoke trade permissions at any time. Nations, while encouraged to engage in commerce for mutual benefit, must also weigh their own interests. If trade threatens national security, a state may justifiably withdraw from it, as exemplified by China's historical trade policies. However, such decisions should only be made for compelling reasons, as disregarding the broader principles of humanity could lead to unjust isolation. In examining the rights of nations in commerce, one must recognize that certain rights are based solely on the capacity to act freely. These rights cannot be forfeited simply due to non-use over time. For example, if a person is free to choose where to mill grain, but chooses one mill for many years, it does not imply they have relinquished the right to use another mill. However, if they comply with restrictions without necessity, it may signal an abandonment of that right. Applying these principles to international trade, nations retain the capacity to choose whether or not to engage in commerce with one another. Thus, even long-standing trading practices do not create obligations. Both nations have the right to prohibit trade with one another, regardless of past agreements or practices. While treaties can establish rights of commerce, a nation retains its prerogative even if those rights are dormant for extended periods. However, if the nation granting trade privileges expects certain conditions to be met, failure to do so may result in the loss of those privileges. Commerce should serve the benefit of the nation as a whole, and monopolies can violate citizens' rights unless justified by national interest. Some commercial ventures demand resources beyond individual capability and may require government-backed companies to sustain them. In these cases, exclusive privileges may be necessary for the nation's benefit. Governments should prioritize trade that enhances national wealth while regulating or restricting trade that may be detrimental. A favorable balance of trade, where exports exceed imports, is crucial for national prosperity. Tools like import duties can effectively redirect trade flows to serve national interests. For instance, high tariffs on French wines in England aim to promote the importation of Portuguese wines, reflecting the nation's trade priorities. Such decisions are within the rights of sovereign states to establish trade conditions, and France has no grounds to object. In conclusion, while nations must collaborate for mutual benefit, they retain the authority to determine the terms of trade based on commerce. Commerce is the vital mechanism that allows individuals and entire nations to acquire goods that they require but cannot produce locally. It can be categorized into domestic and international trade. The former involves transactions within a nation, while the latter encompasses trade with foreign countries. Commerce. Commerce is essential for individuals and entire nations to acquire goods that are necessary but unavailable locally. It can be categorized into domestic and international trade. Domestic trade occurs within a nation's borders, facilitating exchanges among its citizens, while international trade involves transactions with foreign countries. The domestic trade of a nation is invaluable. It provides citizens with access to necessary, useful, or enjoyable goods, stimulates the circulation of money, boosts productivity, and invigorates labor. By supporting the livelihood of many, it plays a critical role in enhancing both the population and the strength of the state. International trade similarly proves beneficial, offering two key advantages. Firstly, it enables a nation to obtain items that cannot be sourced from local resources or manufacturing. Secondly, when managed effectively, it can significantly enhance national wealth and prosperity. Historical examples, such as Carthage in ancient times and the English and Dutch in more recent history, illustrate this point well. Carthage, through its immense wealth, was able to rival Rome's military might, while Holland amassed great riches and established trade dominance in the East. Mod.